This is Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard from the Christian Culture Center, and I want to welcome you to today's message. Wherever you're listening from, at home, in the car, or on the move, I believe this message is going to challenge, inspire, and help you grow. Now let's get into today's message. See, I was reading up after I made fun of Elder Battle and his music, and I repented backstage. I did for those who told me to watch myself. And I started looking up and I said, wow, the music that they sang, the hymns that they sang did so much for them. Right, and when we look at all the things that has happened, you would hear them break out into songs in the field after one of their family members were killed. They had no other way to go through a process of remorse and mourning, because if they started mourning, if they showed any type of emotion tied to that act that led that person to the death, they would be in trouble too. So they had to start finding out outlets. So these songs started taking on different meaning. I started realizing when they're out in the fields and they want to be able to bring some unity in the vastness of the field that they're working in. You hear a sound over here, and then you hear a response all the way on the other side. And next thing you know, all throughout the field, you hear this song happening. And I said, wow, God, even within the text, through song, you're meeting our needs. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, God, wow. One of my favorite songs is "No Man Shall Deliver Me." No man. Don't sing? You tell me not to sing? All right, I'm not going to sing. Elder Battle gave me that look. I thought we were cool. Man. But I just want you to pray for them, especially for a young generation to be out there singing this. Especially when you look at, for the older generation, well, not for the older generation, for the newer generation coming up, they are somewhat detached from this type of music. They detached not only just from the music, but the things that led to this type of music. They didn't have instruments. They didn't have the guitar, the band. They might have had a little washboard or something just to get the beat going, get the rhythm going. But they had to harmonize with no training. They had to learn the lyrics. And they might not even be near each other in order to sing the lyrics, because they might be two different families owning two different individuals working at the same farm. I said, wow. To see young individuals up here doing that, it blessed my heart today. It blessed my heart today. So Pastor called me and said, I want you to minister. This time he gave me a lot of time. He gave me a lot of time to prepare. And I told him, I said, Daddy, I'm having, what would they call it for ministers, a writer's block. Because I had messages in the queue. He just said, be prepared. But, my biggest thing is, I said, Lord, what do I need to minister for this group of individuals coming for this Sunday at this specific time? So a good message might be a good message, but not a good message for this timing. It might not be a good message for this group. So I'm wrestling, and I'm like, Daddy, I don't know. I might have to call one of the ministers. I just couldn't. I'm like, Lord, I need to hear your voice. How many have you ever been at that place where you're seeking for the voice of God, and all you do is you feel this thing called silence? In the midst of the things that you're going through, as you try to wrestle with it, say, Lord, I am about your will. I'm about your work. I'm doing this for you. Lord, please speak to me. And I was at a place, I called my dad, and he said, well, what's on your heart? I said, there's a lot on my heart. I said, turn on the TV. I can give you a list of things that's on my heart. The rise of the demonic forces that are moving in such an aggressive way. I said, Lord, there's so much happening just in that spiritual realm that we can talk about. You look at how it's infiltrating the church, and the certain individuals are not seeing how they're being used, manipulated by these demonic forces, and they call themselves doing the work of God. And he said, no. So I said, there's a lot I could talk about on that perspective. And then you go looking at it, say, okay, Lord, where are we? Are we at the end times, end of the end times, because we've been in the end times for 2,000 years plus? So I said, we can talk about that, and look at it, I said, okay, how do we prepare the church? Because you got people with one theology about the rapture, post-rapture, pre-rapture, after rapture, rapture, no rapture, there's a rapture. But the reality is we have to prepare the church to be able to respond. Is the mark coming? How far is it? Is it down a block, or is it knocking at our door? So this is what I'm wrestling with. I said, so I can give you a list of stuff. He said, well, what's on your heart that you're peaceful about? I said, well, right now, he said, coming out of Lent, interacting with most individuals, trying to understand how their journey was, and just cheering them on and being the cheerleader on the side, just, you can do this, you can do this. I landed at a place, and this is what I'm going to speak about today, and I'm going to do it fast. I speak fast because I had 5 brothers to compete with for the attention of my parents. So if I didn't hurry up and get it out, they're going to cut me off. So let me just calm down because I'm by myself today. And taking notes, and then we have the people signing, and I didn't send them my notes earlier, so they couldn't get prepared correctly, so I'm going to slow down. I'm just excited. There's an excitement that happens when you finally hear the voice of God after such a long time of not hearing it. Because, come on, if we don't hear the voice of God and say, okay, Lord, did I do something to offend you? Lord, where are we in our relationship? Right? But silence from God doesn't necessarily mean distance from God. I'll say that again. Silence from God, a perceived silence from God, does not necessarily mean a distancing from God. And I know some of you were dealing with that in this experiencing, Lord, 40 days of fasting and praying and devotionals and stuff like that. I'm still waiting to hear from you. Man, I know this Christian walk is not easy. I understand it's not easy, but this is the best explanation that fits into what we call reality. The best explanation that fits into reality. And as I had conversations with individuals, I said, okay, what's the thing that you wrestle with? And it landed at these 4 things were the main individuals people wrestle with. It was the 4 answers that we receive from God. And the first answer is, we love this. This is the God we love. First answer we receive is yes. We love that. That's the God. God is good. Won't he do it? You praying to get your yes? Especially he answers right away. Oh, look at God. Look at God. Come on, let's tell the truth. This is how we are. Right? When there's a yes, we know there's a God. Let me read this for you. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. We're going to be bouncing around between 1 and 7, verses 1 and 7. It's the lady with the widow with the oil. And this lady came to the prophet Elijah fearful because the creditors, he owed money. And I think this is a type. Right? I would say this is a type of what we just dealt with in Resurrection Sunday. Because we all had debt that we could not pay. So Elisha's fearful. She came to the prophet Elijah fearful. A creditor had threatened to take her 2 sons as slaves unless she paid her debt that she owed. Elisha asked us, what do you have in your house? Nothing except a small jar of olive oil. See, something small in God's hands. Right? Something small in your hands becomes something major in God's hands. Nothing except a small jar of oil, she replied. At that point, Elisha told her, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside, shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each filled, put it on the side. Once the jars were filled, Elisha told her to sell the olive oil and pay your debts, and there will be enough money left over to support you and your sons. I got new glasses. This is why I got to really apologize to Elder. Because all of a sudden I'm looking and then I'm trying to read and I have to find that sweet spot. So I go to the doctor and said, doctor, something wrong. He said, no, you're just getting old. So I'm trying to get used to this thing called progressive lenses. You got to find that spot right down because it gets progressively stronger and stronger. So I'm trying to read. So just bear with me, okay, saints? Don't worry, Elder. I'm eating my words. See, but there's a lesson that we can learn from this story. When you're looking for God's yes, we need to first consider that that it may begin with you simply changing your perspective. We must first consider that it can begin with changing your perspective because many times you already have the answer within you. See, this widow actually became the part of the solution for her own problem. Write this down. A yes from God will almost always be connected to a person. A yes from God will almost always be connected to a person. This is why Dr. Ron has taught us that relationships are the network for life. When he is ready to take you to the next level, he always sends a person. Now this person can serve directly or indirectly to fulfill God's purpose in your life. Elijah showed up not to give her more oil, but challenge her perspective. But she trusted God and still gave the little she had, and because of her obedience and taking care of someone else's needs, God took care of her. Remember, when God says yes, get ready to use what you already have and be open to a change of perspective. Say to your neighbor, say, neighbor, when God says yes, get ready to use what you already have and to be open to a change of perspective. See, because your idea of what yes looks like can look very different from God's yes. I love it in Isaiah chapter 55, 8 through 9. You don't have to go to it. He says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. Neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. So the first thing that people were searching for throughout this experience was, Lord, I need an answer. And for some of us, we got a yes. For some of us, we got a yes. Number two, though, for some of us, we got to know. For some of us, we got to know. And that's when you shout, the devil's a liar. That no ain't from God. Some of you get mad and start saying, I got to pray harder. You start sounding like Mr. O'Neill when he was singing that Spanish song. And sometimes y'all pray so hard that your God's like, okay, wait, did he saying? What's she saying? I got Americano there. See, but God's no, based on where you are in maturity, is necessary. Let's go to the text. I got to make sure we keep the Bible in this conversation. And this was Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Matthew chapter 26, verse 36 to 39. He said, then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, olive press. And he told his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. And taking with them Peter and two sons of Zebedee, James and John, he began to grieve and greatly distressed. Then he said to them, my soul is deeply grieved. Now this is the man. Because remember, Jesus was all man and all God. And the humanity started coming out of him because he saw what he was about to go through. And some of us, we get afraid of what we're about to go through. He said his soul was deeply grieved so that he says, so that I am almost dying of sorrow. Stay here and stay awake and keep watch with me. And after going a little further, he fell face down and prayed, saying, my Father, if it is possible, that is, if it's consistent with your will in the Amplified Bible, let this cup pass from me. Yet, not as I will, but as you will. See, the humanity of Jesus was wrestling with the desire and looking for an answer. He said, Lord, I give you this cup. And God said, no. You see, and the reason why we have to understand it, in actuality, every unanswered prayer is simply God's grace intervening for many reasons. Some we may never understand. However, when God says no, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6 says, we must lean not on our own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Some of us can look back at a few unanswered prayers and praise God today. He said no. Come on, some of us, somebody in the balcony can say, yeah, I thank God he said no. I prayed for Bob, and now I look at Bob on Instagram like, oh, Lord, thank you for saying no. Come on now, we got to talk the real stuff here. Some of you gentlemen prayed for Felicia and said, oh, no, bye, Felicia. Come on now, we tell the truth here. There's some times when we think back at the goodness of God, and part of the goodness of God, like all my life, you have been faithful. And part of that faithfulness is saying no. So imagine God answered Jesus' prayer that day. None of us would be sitting here today. So you trust God's will for your life. And remember that your unanswered prayer will affect everyone around you. So you got to understand that when God said no to Jesus, look at the effects that he had to many. So shift the perspective and say, okay, well, maybe my no is not just because of me, but the benefit of everybody else. Because if I get what I want, how will it affect individuals around me? Let's go to 2 Corinthians. How about this is the struggle, especially when it comes to health. Chapter 12, verses 7 through 10. He says, in the thorn in the flesh, because of the surpassing greatness and extraordinary nature of the revelations which I received from God, for this reason, to keep me from thinking of myself as important. A thorn in the flesh was given to me. Nobody knows what the thorn was. Some people speculate, was he a little heavy on the Hennessy? Nobody knows. Was he, a cusser? You was going around cussing people out? Nobody knows. Do you have a bad attitude, ready to fight and kill somebody? Nobody knows. They just know he had a thorn in his flesh and he didn't like it. And how many of us are in a place where there's certain things that we're dealing with ourselves that we have that we don't like? He said, the thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to torment and harass me. To keep me from exalting myself concerning this, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My grace is sufficient for you. He said, and in the Amplified Bible, tries to unpack that. He says, my loving kindness and my mercy are more than enough. Always available, regardless of the situation. For my power is being perfected and is completed and shows itself most effectively in your weakness. Therefore, I will all the more gladly boast of the weakness, so that the power of Christ may completely enfold me and may dwell in me. So I am well pleased with my weakness, with insults, with distresses, with persecutions, and with difficulties for the sake of Christ. For when I'm weak in human strength, I am strong, truly able, powerful, truly drawing from God's strength. So ultimately, God's no is directly connected to your Christianity. God's no is directly connected to your Christianity. So the first thing is yes. The second answer is no. The third answer is not yet. And this is one of the ones that we wrestle with. Not yet. And I love this text that I'm going to read. For the sake of time, I'm going to Jamalize it. Jamalism, right? In Daniel chapter 3, verses 24, 27, but I'm going to go back a little in my Jamalism that says, so you got Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You got King Nebuchadnezzar. He builds a statue. I used to assume that people would know this text because some people I have learned haven't gotten out of Genesis yet. So in Daniel chapter 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, King Nebuchadnezzar gets puffed up, ends up wanting to build this statue, builds this statue, and he says, when you ever hear the music instruments, you got to pray to it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say, no, we're good, right? I'm good. King Nebuchadnezzar, they play the instruments. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is chilling, watching everybody bow, like, nah, these people are bugging. So then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego gets yelled at by King Nebuchadnezzar, and he goes and says, what man of God can save you? He said, look, even if my God has the power. So we have to understand that God has the power to respond the way he wants to respond. I'll try this again. Maybe somebody in the balcony, right here in the ramp. God has the power to respond the way he wants to respond. And sometimes our faith should have us land on a place where, Lord, the way you respond, you're going to respond. And here it is, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They said, no, we're good. They get thrown into the furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego goes in the furnace. King Nebuchadnezzar looks in the furnace and says, hey, didn't we throw 3 individuals? I see a 4th individual. It might be the Son of God. Or the type of shadow, depending on what translation you read. He says, let them out. They come out. And what we realize is that God didn't say no for deliverance. He said, not yet. And the reality is sometimes, because God's a big picture God. God is a God, he does things in a place where, see, we only see the physical realm. But the reality is when God is moving, especially at such a magnitude, he is making statements both in the physical realm as well as the spiritual realm. That's why I love it when David was fighting Goliath. He said, look, I'm going to kill this Goliath. I'm going to kill this guy. He said so that humanity can see. But there's a little text that a lot of people glaze over because everybody wants to kill their giants. But what's the reason for your killing of your giants? See, David said, so that man can see the might of the God we serve. And then there's a little spot. He says, and so will the council. Now, if you are part of the spiritual war classes, you understand the council was the semblance of the angels. So when David was killing his giant, he was making a statement on behalf of God for both the earthly realm and the heavenly realm. So unless you're ready to make a statement from the earthly realm and the heavenly realm, stop trying to go out there and say, I'm killing my giants. just so that you can show off on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got freed for the sake of time. See, this was a God, divine, supernatural power and protection at work here. We have to remember that God is about the big picture. God is working through our waiting. Say to your neighbor, say, God is waiting, working through your waiting. Turn to the other neighbor, say, other neighbor, God is working through your waiting. See, I'm not a fan of waiting. Believe you me, I'm the worst at Christmas time. Yes, still at 40 years old, my wife has to hide my Christmas gifts. No, really, I am bad. To the point where, like, my mother used to buy us Christmas gifts. We used to find them, play with them, and we rewrap them and put it back on the tree. I'm bad. Like, and my wife knows I can wrap. So I can open a gift and then rewrap it and not get caught. So she really has to hide it and she doesn't wrap my gifts or brings them out until I'm sleeping. And then one time I tried to fake like I was sleeping. She heard me. I don't like waiting. I'm so bad that I won't even, it's torture for me to not even be able to give my wife her present before time. Like, I'm going to give my kids their present. I'm like, look, it hurts me. So to the point where I end up starting to shop a little later because waiting a month, I used to shop a month ahead of time, right? Get the sales, get the deals, budget everything out and stuff like that. But I had to stop because I was giving the gifts away. Like, oh, I just got this for you. I just couldn't wait for Christmas. See, but when God makes us wait, he makes us wait in loving wisdom. Say loving wisdom. See, God makes us wait in loving wisdom. God uses waiting to increase our trust, to teach us a lesson, or to train us. Once again, God, he makes us wait in loving wisdom. I hope you get that part. Loving wisdom. So there's a methodology behind saying not yet. Something's going on. Something's happening. There's certain elements and key components have to be in place for him to respond to your prayer. Whether it's your heart or the heart of the person that he's going to use to bless you. You got to say there's a bigger picture. There's always a bigger picture. So in his loving wisdom, he uses waiting to, one, increase our trust. Or possibly number two, to teach us a lesson. And number three is to train us, to develop us. Because the first question I ask is, are you prepared to receive what you're asking for? See, people want a Mercedes-Benz until they got to put it in the shop. You said how much it costs to do a brake job? 15 what? Lord have mercy. Have Pastor Jamaal slipping up and saying some words. I said, what's the difference with those brakes? What kind of brakes are those? So God is training us, preparing us. On the other hand, our waiting is about a bigger picture. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their time of waiting was about the future relationship Israel would have with the king of Nebuchadnezzar. Once he pulled them out of the furnace, the dynamics of the way Israel was treated in Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar shifted to the point where he started promoting their God. Remember I preached this before. He said, if anybody says something against their God, I'm going to kill them. See, your waiting is bigger than what you're trying to accomplish right then and there. See, King Nebuchadnezzar, nobody knew when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, wait, we're going to wait for God to deliver us. And then the way God delivered us was to change the future trajectory of the relationship between Israel and Nebuchadnezzar. And please understand me. Not only did it change the trajectory of the King Nebuchadnezzar, the story went ahead of them of what their God did to other kings. So our time of waiting is more about your future than your present. Your time of waiting is more about your future than your present. And the last one, in 5 minutes, we're going to talk fast, is I have something better. I have something better. So we had yes, we had no, we had not yet, but God said, look, I have something better. He said, you're asking for this. I need you to think bigger. You're asking for this. I need you to take it up another level. Like Dr. Bernard taught us, he said, prayer is elevating your heart, your will, and your mind. He said, come on, look, come up here. Step up your game up in prayer. Be audacious with what you ask for. He said, you want to get over a cold? That's lightweight. So give me something really that would challenge your faith. Ask me for something to do that would challenge your faith.
Thank you for listening to Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard of Christian Culture Center. Download the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and visit cccinfo.church for more. We'd love to see you in person. Join us Sundays at 10 a.m. at our Brooklyn or Long Island campuses.